We are live on YouTube. This is episode number 190. Wow, almost to 200 episodes. And we are live in 3, 2. All right, welcome back to The Male Entrepreneur, the podcast for men who win with Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
I am doing phenomenal. This has been a great day so far. We recorded the last episode right before this one, so we had a great chat. And I forgot to mention that by the time people listen to this, you out there, our lovely audience, I want to thank you for making 2021 an amazing year for us. And I want to wish you the very best in 2022. I truly want you to conquer. I want you to succeed. I want you to get everything that you want in life. And that's one of the elements of why we're doing this podcast, is to be able to give you the skills, the training, sometimes even a little bit of a motivation bump, but really help you get to where you want to be in life. So I hope you have an amazing 2022.
Awesome. I mentioned on the last episode, 2020 was not the best year for me. And I think we were doing this podcast, we were kind of working together, and it was so overwhelming that I thank God that I had you in my life to help me through that time. But a lot of the stuff that you said kind of fell on dead or deaf ears for me. Last year, though, was freaking amazing for me, for my business, and just for my own personal development. And I credit a lot of that to the work that we've been doing together. And so I just want to say thank you for bearing with me as I kind of had my struggles, and also just for, while the world was going through this, continuing to put out a message that empowered people and helped get some of us through it, because I know that I am one of those people that my life was made better because of the work that you were doing. So awesome that you're willing to thank the audience, but as a member of the audience, I want to say thank you back.
Oh, thanks, man. I couldn't do the show without you. I'm telling you. And I got to thank you in return, because the only reason why we're doing this show is because of you. I don't think if I ever found you, or who knows, we found each other back a few years ago, I don't think I'd be doing this show. And then every time that I had those struggles at the beginning, or that we didn't see it, the listenership or whatever numbers really climb up, you kind of brought me back. So I want to thank you, because this show is the two of us. And I think when people say the male entrepreneur, it is a combination. I love this combination. I love how we play off each other. I love how you ask me tough questions. I love your feedback, your interactivity, and you make me think. And this is literally one of my most favorite times of, you can say, the week, because we get to have some really good conversations. So thank you in return, my friend.
All right. So what do we have on the agenda for the listeners today?
Oh, well, we're going to be talking about systems and how life is a system. Everything around us is a system. And if you can figure out what makes up the systems and how to actually impact each element of the systems and how the systems interact with each other, making this one universal system, well, guess what? Life becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot better, a lot more fulfilling, and it actually becomes a lot more fun, because you can sit there and it's kind of like putting Lego together. Just on a side note, my son's doing that with a Star Wars battleship right now, and he's
Nice.
been working on it for 3 days straight, morning to night. But when you can figure that out, life becomes a lot more fulfilling.
So one objection that comes to my mind that I think a lot of people probably feel is they feel like their life is not a system. They feel like their life is a bunch of moving parts that are kind of competing with each other. We hear about like work-life balance. If I want to get more done in my career, I have to sacrifice time with my family. If I want to get more done with my family, I have to sacrifice my workouts. So I think a lot of people, instead of having a system that works together, they have a bunch of competing microsystems or competing silos of their life, and they haven't figured out, or maybe we were talking about belief systems last time, maybe don't even believe that it's possible to have these things work together and work to power each other.
Really good point. Really good point. And I think that's really what I see out of that is that people are looking at it from a silo perspective, and we've been trained to do that. If I take a look at a perfect example is the corporate world or a business world, right? We have silos of marketing, sales, or whatever it is, and we don't see the overall system. So if each executive is functioning in a silo and they're not working with the other systems within the organization, well, guess what? The organization suffers and struggles. But when you figure out that everybody needs to work together and those resources need to be shared, and maybe they're not shared equally, but maybe there's a way of sharing so that the ultimate goal is reached, and that sharing changes over time. Like you're talking about time, right? We talk about work-life balance. I'm a huge, huge supporter of work-life balance from the perspective of there is no fine line, but you have to be able to balance. You have to be able to shift your energy from one to the other and know when there's times that you have to spend more time at work and spend less time at home. And then when you have to spend more time at home and less time at work. So everything is a fluid system. It's not just one way. But here's a simple example. Here's how you know that it's a system. When you're having a crappy time in your relationship, guess what? You're going to have a crappy day and you're not going to perform as well in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or for example, if you're not feeling well physically, let's just say you ate something bad. Well, it's tougher to perform better, right? It's tougher to make decisions. If you have a stomach ache, you're just not feeling well, or you go to a party, you're not able to socialize as well because you got that stomach ache that's there. Everything is a system. And when you figure out the different systems and you break it down into elements, well, guess what? It becomes a lot easier. And here's why I say this is because we are within the next 12 months patenting our formula for what we call having peak performance and having a more fulfilling life, because we've segregated the systems and we've integrated them, and we found each element of the system. So when we talk to someone, when I'm working with a gentleman and he says, hey, look, you know what, this is one of my challenges, boom, we know exactly where, in what system that falls in, what element that is, and how it impacts the other systems, and what we need to do to remove that roadblock or change things. And so what we've done is reverse engineered how people perform and have more fulfillment in life. For this episode, what I want to focus on is it's not just one thing. It's not just one thing that is going to impact your life. It's a system. And when you realize that, like I said, your relationship system impacts your parenting system, which impacts your business system, which impacts your health system, which impacts your spiritual system. All of these systems are intertwined. And if one's not functioning properly, all the other ones are not going to function properly.
One of the
That's
best
the secret.
one of the best takeaways that I got from reading your book last year was, and the way I'm looking at this like a big machine with a bunch of different cogs and gears, and they're all turning together. And when each one is well oiled, they're turning properly, and the whole machine works better. The whole system works better. But one of the things that was like a major aha moment for me when I was reading your book was sometimes the cogs are working backwards. And what I mean by that is, an example that you have is like, well, I would be in a better mood if I could get laid more often. If my wife would just have sex with me more often, I would be in a better mood. But the reality is the opposite. It's the gear is going backwards. The truth is, if you were in a better mood, your wife would be more attracted to you. She'd be more responsive to your advances. She'd be more prone to want to have sex with you. Another example that you gave was, well, if I had more energy, I'd go work out, but I'm just exhausted after the day. I don't have any more energy, so I can't go work out. Versus the reality of, look, if you just got off your ass and went for a walk, went for a jog, went to the gym, you'd have more energy. So it's not if I had more energy, I'd work out. It's if I worked out, I'd have more energy. So a lot of times we've got all these different gears trying to work together, but one or two of our gears, we're looking at it backwards, and the gear's going against the grain, and it's making every other gear that's powered by that gear also have to struggle that much harder. And, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just know that while you were saying that, I was seeing this picture of a machine, a system that's supposed to be working, but one or two beliefs or one or two aspects of our life that we don't realize is completely messing up the flow of the whole machine just because we're looking at it with the wrong perspective.
Wow, I think you explained it better than I did. So I think that's a phenomenal analogy. I love that because you're absolutely right. Sometimes the cranks are just going the wrong way. So beautiful way of putting it, Nathan. I think that is a simple way. I got the point on that one. I think the audience definitely did as well. And here's a question for you out there. Does your life, sometimes does your business feel like a grind? Do you feel like you're just pushing through and pushing through out of sheer will, right? Sheer willpower. And I can tell you just out of the stats that we know is that 90% of you out there, 9 out of 10 guys out there listening to this are feeling that way.
Mm.
And sometimes I feel that way. And sometimes, you know what? It's tough to get past. Sometimes I can't even figure it out and it takes me some time. But going back to what you said, Nathan, it is sometimes my cranks are going the wrong way and I got to figure out which ones and then help to alleviate those, right? You got to put some grease in it. Maybe you get, like you said, get it going the right way. But when things start to flow, then it becomes a lot easier, right? Life becomes a lot more fulfilling. I'm not going to say that it's never a challenge because the challenge is what makes it fulfilling. That's how you
Mhm.
grow, right? That's how you change. That's how, just like physical fitness, that's how your body changes, is based on the pressure and the resistance. So it's a really good point. I like what you said there, Nathan.
So we've talked about on the podcast before the concepts of force versus flow.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have to power through something to get stronger. Sometimes we have to force something. But once we get into that flow state and things just start coming naturally, I know for me, sometimes I get in a writing state where I'll be writing for 4 or 5 hours. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I need to go get something to eat or I need to go to sleep. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, these systems, this overall concept, what are your thoughts on how it applies to finding that flow state in life?
Mm, absolutely. So if we talk, it's funny you're talking about flow state. We're actually, that's another system that we're taking a look at, because flow was originally, if we take a look at what flow is, the definition of flow is when you feel at your best and you perform at your best, right? And some people call it the zone. This is what we call it. We call it the complete zone. Athletes will call it the zone, right? When they're in a complete state of presence. Sometimes it feels like it's an out of body experience, right? Time is just kind of distorted. You feel like you're actually almost working magic, right? Like you're able to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. And it feels great. Extreme sports people feel this, right? When they're going, and skiers, for example, skydivers, this is the feeling that you get, and it's a euphoria. Well, we call it the complete zone. And there's ways of getting into this zone. There's different triggers, but this was originally research. It's actually, there's scientific research behind it. And there's a gentleman called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi that actually started this research over 20 plus years ago, and very phenomenal stuff. So can you be in that state like you talked about? Yes, absolutely. If you be more in that state more often, your life will become a lot more pleasurable and you can actually get a lot more done. And there's different triggers. And these are the things that, this is another program that we're taking. We can't patent this because it was originally started by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and there's a lot of research already, but we're creating our own version of it and we're adding on to it constantly. We're doing neuroscience studies on this all the time. But it's important that, if I'm sure, Nathan, like you said, you get into this when you're in a writing state,
Mhm.
right? When you're putting together some awesome copy, and it's just kind of like go 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 go. That for you is a way to get into that. Every one of us has a way of getting into this zone. And if we figure out how we get into this zone, because most people don't know, they just get into it and then they just do it by accident. Right? But there's also different elements to that as well, different triggers that you can add on to make that easier to get into that state as well. Now, I know we're kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but your original question is, how important is the zone? It's absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical. Here's why. It's one of the key elements that we teach, because if we can get men into the zone more often, they're going to be able to get their goals faster, easier. They're going to be able to have more time, more productivity, and they're going to feel better, and they're going to have more energy. All of this stuff is what, honestly, researchers are saying lead to a more effective and a happier lifestyle.
So two things, just a side note real quick. I used to train hop keto, and I would get into, especially when we were actually sparring and fighting, I would get into the zone where stuff would slow down and I could see punches coming before they would come. I could dodge a kick before. It felt like sometimes I could feel the kick coming before the other person even made the decision to throw a kick at me. So that, as far as sports goes, that's my closest association to that, is training in hop keto. But I want to ask you a question. Meditation, as far as having a complete system, meditation has been one of the things for me that has made everything flow, has given me the ability to focus and be introspective and kind of work out those things that aren't flowing properly. But for the longest time, I was like, I don't have 20 minutes in the morning to spend not being productive. I don't have 20 minutes in the morning to spend not doing anything. I'm rushing. I'm trying to get stuff done. But I have noticed that on the mornings when I meditate, I have a different experience throughout the day. The machine, the system seems to work a lot better. So before we're out of here, I want to get your thoughts on meditation and maybe the different types of meditation and how they might have an impact on this system that you're talking about.
Okay, so let's talk about the different types. There's different types of meditation. There's um, free flow meditation. There's guided meditations. There's visualization meditations. There's walking meditation. So there's so many different types of meditation. There's mindfulness meditation. So you can find what works for you and what works best for you, and you can try out the other ones. Some people cannot sit there, but walking could be a better way of meditating for you. I used to do a ton of walking meditation when I was a kid, like hours at a time. And so it is absolutely critical for you to find what works for you. Don't let anybody tell you that you should be sitting there in a cave like a monk with your, no food, no water for 3 days, and that's what meditation is. No, that's just a stigma, a stereotype. The second thing is, going back to one of your original questions. What is it? What the benefits of meditation are huge. Why? Because it calms down your brain and it trains your brain. This is why mindfulness and meditation, which are two separate things, train your brain to have better attention and focus. And better attention and focus, guess what? A key factor for getting into the zone is focus and attention. That is a non-negotiable. It is one of the check marks that you have to get into the zone. If you don't have that, you will not get into the zone. That's why meditation is so critical for you. You can train your brain to have better attention and better focus. That's why these monks, for example, who do meditate, like the Shaolin monks that we talk about, that they're able to have these amazing feats or achievements, is because they can focus better and they have better attention capabilities. So they do go hand in hand. From a scientific perspective, from a spiritual perspective, that's a whole other ball game, right? Where people talk about energy, talk about tapping into source energy, tapping into the universe and universal consciousness. There's different ways of taking a look at it, but just from sheer science, which has been proven, is meditation helps you focus. It is something you need to do, especially in today's day and age. Nathan, this is one thing that people are struggling with more and more people are being diagnosed with ADD. More people are having symptoms. I think a lot of it is, we're having better technology to be able to diagnose natural or biological ADD, but I think a lot of us are creating the behaviors of this because of social media, technology. People aren't reading in books as much as they are on screens or audio books. All of these things are impacting our big ability to focus, which is ultimately impacting our ability to get into the zone. My last pitch here. If you want to feel better, you want to have a more fulfilling life, you want to perform at your best, you want to get into the zone and be a kick-ass performer in your business and all aspects of your life, I'm not saying just meditate. What I'm saying is focus your ability on getting better attention. That's what you need to have. And technology is pulling you away from that. It's actually not helping you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Okay, so we talked about a lot today. We kind of went down a couple different rabbit holes, but I think they all kind of tied back together in the overall idea of all of this stuff does tie back together. Your attention, your focus, your flow state, your perspective on different aspects of your life, your understanding how each aspect impacts and can either empower or disempower other areas of your life. Having an understanding of that gives you kind of more of like a 50,000 foot view of what's going on in your life. And sometimes you need to be able to step back, get outside of the picture and look at the picture as a whole outside of the frame, and in order to get an understanding of everything that's going on. And for me personally, I found with the guys that I work with or the gals that I work with in business, in their marketing, sometimes it's hard to do that without some help, without somebody to help you and say, hey, let's take a step back and look at this not inside the frame, but outside of the frame. Sometimes it's important to have somebody there that can have that other perspective. And I know that for the work that you do, this is probably something that you run into a lot as well. When the guys come to you, I bet you have the same issue where you're like, look, let me help you step outside of your perspective. Let me show you another perspective to look at this from in order to have those real breakthroughs. So all of that, a long-winded pitch for you because I've gotten this from you. But if guys out there are listening and they're like, I want to have Purdeep sit down with me and maybe do this kind of exploration, maybe offer me this other perspective because I feel like there's a part of my system that's not feeding or not empowering the other parts of my system and I can't figure out what it is. If people want to get a hold of you and maybe have a discussion about this, what's the best way to get into contact with you?
Yeah, just simply reach out, email us at team@purdeepsangha.com. So once again, that is team@purdeepsangha.com. It's a simple one. It's an easy way.
Awesome. And for people who listen to this episode and were like, dude, this is amazing. I cannot miss another episode of this podcast. Where do I go to sign up and subscribe and get more episodes?
It's funny you say that because I was thinking about the URL rabbitholes.com and I'm going to check that out after, see if that's available. But that's not actually our website. We just tend to go down some rabbit holes every once in a while. But it is youtubeformen.com for the YouTube channel or mailpodcast.com for the audio.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for putting together a fantastic episode. And until next time, we will catch you later.
Till next time, man.